thank you to all in attendance today. I'd like to call to order the September the 26th meeting of County of Perth Land Division Committee. I would like to make note that what will be shown on the screen for those viewing at home is our remote meeting platform, whereby whoever is speaking will be shown predominantly with smaller images of the members and staff attending along the edge of the screen. The agenda for the meeting hearing has been posted online at perthcounty.ca. If you want to follow along, please feel free to access it now. I will remind committee members, staff, and any others participating in the meeting to please mute your microphone when not in use to reduce feedback. As this meeting is being held remotely, the Secretary Treasurer will call each of the members' names, and each member will respond if they are in favor or opposed to the motion, and the chair will announce the results of the vote. Before we proceed, we will confirm attendance of the committee members by roll call.
Warden Aitchison.
Present.
Deputy Warden Agates.
Here.
Councillor Duncan.
Here.
And Chair Mackenzie.
Here. So we've got a quorum. Note that Councillor Hurlick is not with us this morning. So the first item on the agenda then is that we confirm the agenda of the September 26th meeting. Do we have a mover and seconder for that motion? Moved by Warden Aitchison, seconded by Deputy Warden Agates. And Michelle, I'll let you conduct the vote.
Warden Aitchison.
Yep.
Deputy Warden Agates.
Yes.
Councillor Duncan.
Yes.
Chair Mackenzie.
Yes, and so that motion has been carried. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda this morning? Don't see any hands going up, so I think we're okay. That then brings us down to the hearing of the application, number 5 on the agenda. Excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat here. And it's an application for consent to sever, number B11/21. And Jillian Smith from MHBC, the planner on behalf of Perth County, will be presenting this application. So if Jillian, yeah, I see your name on there. So Jillian, we'll just turn the floor over to you and you can walk us through it.
Excuse me, Chair Mackenzie, we
Yes.
skipped over item number 4, the adoption of the previous minutes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes, I did. All right. So item number 4, the Land Division Committee approved the minutes July 25th, the Land Division Committee meeting. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Duncan, and seconded by Deputy Warden Agates. And Michelle, you can conduct that vote. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Warden Aitchison.
Yes.
Deputy Warden Agates.
Yes.
Councillor Duncan.
Yes.
And Chair Mackenzie.
Yes, so that is carried. And again, I apologize for that. So Jillian, the floor is yours now.
Great, good morning. I'm just going to share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yep, looks good.
Great. So today I'm presenting consent application B11/2022 Wood. The property is located at 6657 line 93. Before I start, I just wanted to clarify that the issue related to this application has actually been resolved. But the application has remained on the agenda for today in order to avoid any confusion for those who had received notice of the meeting. So I'm still going to go over the application, the policy framework, and then I'll provide a summary of the resolved issue that led to today's presentation. So the owner of the subject property has applied for consent to sever the existing farm property and create a new lot that would be rezoned for agricultural, commercial, industrial use. The lot to be retained would remain in agricultural use, while the proposed severed lot is planned to be used as an agricultural industrial facility producing and distributing milk replacers, which is kind of like baby formula for livestock. The severed lot is planned to be purchased by Mapleview Agri Limited, who currently have existing facilities in Perth County and who will run the proposed facility. So the proposed severed lot would have a lot area of approximately 3 hectares, and the lot to be retained would have a remaining area of 52 hectares. Presently, the subject property is occupied with a single detached dwelling, storage shed, garden shed, workshop, and 2 silos. The proposed severed lot, which would house the milk replacer facility, would consist of a warehouse, a production area, and an office building. 2 access points are proposed for the new lot, one for employees on Perth Line 93 and one for distribution on Perth Road 140. And so the location of the proposed separate lot is actually adjacent to an existing hamlet area, which is within Wellington County. And it consists of various land uses, including commercial, residential, and industrial, which you can sort of see on the periphery of the site plan. So the provincial policy identifies the property as rural areas, and it is considered to be a prime agricultural area. Permitted uses include agriculture-related uses, which are farm-related commercial and industrial uses that would provide products to farm operations within the area. The county official plan designates the property as agriculture. Permitted uses include farming uses of all types, which include farm-related uses. The official plan policies require an amendment to the zoning bylaw for any new farm-related commercial and industrial uses. The zoning bylaw zones the property agricultural. So in accordance with the official plan policy for farm-related commercial and industrial use, a zoning bylaw amendment is required to change the zoning of the property from agricultural to the agricultural commercial industrial zone, known as ACM. And that would apply for the separate lot. The retained lot will remain zoned as agricultural, and the zoning bylaw amendment would be a condition of approval of the consent. So in terms of the comments received, 2 public comments were received from resident property owners who currently reside across from the proposed severed lot. The residents had concerns related to the type and scale of the development proposed, and they had indicated their objection to the proposal. In light of that, Mapleview Agri Limited, who will take over the severed lot and run the facility, actually hosted the residents at one of their existing facilities, gave them a tour and everything. And so in light of that tour, both residents withdrew their objections and no longer have concerns with the application. And Mapleview Agri Limited has agreed to a planting strip of trees along the Perth Line 93 frontage, just to help with any concerns related to views of the facility, which was one of the issues. But the public comment and the neighboring comments have been resolved, so there's no issue there. However, the issue that led to today's meeting is related to an agency comment that was received from Wellington County Roads. So Wellington County has jurisdiction over both Road 93 and Road 140. And so Wellington County had asked for a 1-foot reserve along Perth Road 140, which would restrict access from Road 140. And so the applicant objected to this because they had proposed having an access from Road 140. And so that objection is how this application got onto the agenda for today. However, in the last couple of weeks, Wellington County removed that request. They had discussions with the applicant, and instead, Wellington County will be requesting an access review during the site plan application. And so that will just sort of require that during the site plan application, a review of the access to Road 140 is reviewed further, as opposed to deciding it right now. It's just sort of pushing it to another application phase. And so with that, the applicant had removed their objection in order for this to move forward. And so the application is no longer contested at this point. And so with that said, planning staff are recommending approval of this application on the basis that it represents good planning and it is aligned with the land use policy framework. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thanks, Jillian. Yep, I'll get the screen back here. So any questions from members of Land Division with regards to this application? Deputy Mayor Akins?
Not a question, but more a comment on page 10. It's a little confusing what we're doing today. I think what we're doing is just creating a lot. It says in the application, the purpose is they've applied for consent to sever one existing farm parcel, but they're not severing the farm parcel. They're just severing a lot. Is that correct?
Yes. So currently it's just one farm parcel at the moment. And so
Right.
the applicant is severing a portion of that farm parcel in order to create the rural industrial commercial
Right.
use.
But mine's just in the wording. Like, I think if somebody looked at it 5 years down the road, they think that they're severing the farm parcel as well and not just the lot. So I'm just wondering if that should be just tweaked a little bit, that they're severing a farm parcel from an severing a lot from an existing farm parcel instead of what's there. So sorry, I should have emailed that in earlier, but otherwise, no, I have no other questions. It looks good.
Anybody else, any questions? So this property is probably, in my understanding, it's as far north in Perth County as we can possibly get, right at the very top. So it's kind of unique, I think, that way. If there is no other questions, then we do have a motion here, and I'll read the motion and then we can go from there. The Perth County Land Division Committee receives the application of consent to sever number B11/22 report, and that Perth County Land Division Committee approved the application for consent to sever number B. Now, is this, you've got B17 here, Michelle. Should that be B11 or B17?
B11.
B11, okay, it's a 17, so it's B11 /22 by just the planning consultants for CPC affecting lands described as Lot 1 and 2, Concession 13 of the Wallace Ward, 6657, line 93, North Perth, with the following conditions. And there's 7 conditions there. They're the standard conditions that follow an application of this sort. Is it the committee's wish that I read all 7 applications, or you've had it before you for the weekend, and I assume everybody has looked at that? Any problem with just agreeing with those 7 conditions? A nod would work. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Matt. Okay, so Michelle, we need a mover and seconder for that first. Moved by Councillor Duncan and seconded by Deputy Warden Higgins. Okay, Michelle, I'll let you conduct the vote on that application.
Warden Aitchison,
Yes.
Deputy Warden Agats,
Yes.
Councillor Duncan,
Yes.
and Chair McKenzie.
Yes, so the results of that vote is that application is approved. On to the next one then. Application are on our agenda. It's 5.2, and it's application for consent to sever B32-21. And John is going to be presenting this one, and this is one that was carried over from our previous meeting. So John, you can take it away.
Thank you, Chair McKenzie and committee members. I'll just share my screen real quick. And double checking that we can see that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone. This application is B32-21. It's the application for surplus farm dwelling severance submitted by Toll Acres Limited and Adrian Anthony Tolnar. The location of the property is Lot 24, Concession 17 in the Alma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, line 57, and it's the 911 number is 5570. One item to note is that on page 10, there is an error. The applicant's proposal is 1.79 acres and not 1.89, as I had noted in the report. Just as a quick note to address before we get into it here. Okay, so the application, as many of you will know, was previously discussed at the LDC meeting on July 25th, 2022. The application was deferred to provide the applicant the opportunity to formalize their new modified proposals by means of surveys. Schedule A and Schedule B, as you can see in front of the screen here, are the formalized proposals that the applicants have come up with. So Schedule A on the left side here is their first new proposal, and it proposes to sever 7,257 meters squared or 1.79 acres, and it does not include the windbreaks, and I'll get into the windbreaks a bit more in my discussion going forward, but it does not include the windbreaks to the east and to the north, whereas the second proposal, Schedule B here, is 2 acres approximately, or not approximately, that's a survey, so it's 2 acres, and the retained portion is 60.1 hectares, and it includes the windbreaks to the east and to the north there. Right. So the area outlined in red, as you see before you, is the department's recommendation. And it's recommending a modification. This department modification has changed since the July 25th Land Division Committee. The main reason for the change is to include 2 windbreaks on the severed portion, windbreaks 2 and 3 in Schedule I. The applicant survey, Schedule A, again, does not include these windbreaks, whereas the department's modification includes these 2 windbreaks. So the approximate severed portion will then take us to 1.68 acres with a retained parcel of 60.28 hectares. So we'll get into a bit of the windbreaks here, and therefore the reasoning for the new modification. But essentially, the official plan, Perth County official plan, section 5631, surplus farm dwelling severance, subsection D states that existing buildings and landscape features such as ponds, gardens, and windbreaks may be included in the surplus farm dwelling lot, provided they are deemed accessory to the residential use and are in close proximity to the dwelling. The department is of the opinion that the windbreak east of the dwelling, number 3, as you can see in the blue, number 3 outlined before you, constitutes as a residential use for the surplus farm dwelling severance. It is approximately 9 meters from the dwelling. The department has included this windbreak in the updated department modified sketch, Schedule C, which is 1.68 acres as a note. The department is of the opinion that windbreak number 1, as you see in the red section here, shall not be considered as having a residential use. It's approximately 26 meters from the dwelling, and therefore does not constitute as a residential use. There's a second group of trees that can be considered as a windbreak north of the dwelling, outlined in Schedule I, and it's in the yellow or orange imagery as you see before you. This windbreak is approximately 5 meters from the dwelling. Number 2, as you see before you, is in close proximity to the dwelling, whereas number 1 is set back a larger distance. Windbreak number 2 can be considered as having a residential use. The department originally provided a smaller yard for the barn with a modified sketch brought to the July 25th Land Division Committee meeting. However, with the inclusion of windbreak number 2, the yellow and orange windbreak there in front of you, it is demonstrated that a larger area than originally recommended north of the dwelling is appropriate for residential and accessory uses. We'll go into a bit of the imagery that was taken from site visits that the department has done. But essentially what you see before you is windbreak number 1, or sorry, windbreak number 3 and windbreak number 2. And this image was taken looking north along the property there. So this image is of the surplus farm dwelling in the foreground, and it includes windbreaks 2 and 3 in the background. And then this image shows windbreak 1 and part of windbreak 2, as per Schedule I, as previously discussed. So this garage is abandoned and has since fallen over. This provides further justification for the prospective buyers to repurpose the barn, or if you want to call it a driving shed, for their woodworking shop and personal storage. Previous surveys of the property indicated that the well was located in the manicured grass area south of the barn, between the barn and line 57, to be exact. It has since been determined that the original surveyed location of the well was created in error. The new surveyed sketch shows the accurate location of the well, which is directly adjacent to the dwelling. There's a bit more of an image there showing the location in proximity to the dwelling. The chief building official has deemed the dwelling habitable on May 24th, 2022. This image shows the area north of the barn and was taken looking to the west. The department's modification allows for a linear northern lot boundary that extends the full west-east rear boundary, and the new inclusion of windbreak number 2. This provides a setback of approximately 10 meters from the barn to the rear lot line, allowing for added space for the prospective buyers to park larger vehicles in the 3 bay doors along the north face of the barn. Here's an image showing the area north of the barn. It's taken looking south, as you can see the 3 bay doors there. And this image shows some structural components of the barn. And the final image that I have before I conclude things is, as you see here, showing the existing barn, and it's taken looking towards the east. I can take any questions now, or we can discuss further. I'll stop sharing my screen as of now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, John. Any questions from members of the committee? Oh, go ahead, Ron.
So how far is the lot line then from that barn? Like it goes, sorry, I don't know what direction we're out here. I think it's north of it. Made the line come across behind, or in between the 2 windbreaks. So is there enough room to back that? Like how many feet is it to the farmer to pull in and back up their equipment to get into that barn, or the person that owned it? I guess, or they'll be putting smaller stuff in there, but is it even big enough for a person that had a boat or a camper to pull up and back in? Or are they going to be out in the farmer's property to do that? Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Through you, Chair Mackenzie. I was just sharing my screen there just to try to address the questions. But essentially, just to wrap up and just to kind of essentially understand what you're asking there, is that was there enough space along between the rear lot line and the barn for campers or for other residential vehicles that could go into the 3 bay doors? Is that what you kind of heard?
Yeah.
So there'll be 10 meters approximately, and that, that was considered based upon the fact that we included the second windbreak on this modified sketch this time. It was more important for us to identify which essentially windbreaks would then be included with the severed portion. and then provide a linear lot line along the edge, along to the essentially eastern edge of the property. So there'll be 10 meters approximately for the new prospective buyers to park vehicles.
Okay, thanks, John. Any other questions with regards to this application? Michelle, is there anybody else that has comments at this time?
I have Katie DeBlock Boersma here.
Okay,
I'll give her permission to speak.
sure. Yep, no, that's fine. Morning, Katie.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you quite well. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, that's fine, as long as you can hear me. So I'm here on behalf of the applicant and the prospective owner of the property, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I want to start by thanking John for his thorough overview. What I can indicate as far as, you know, what my clients have proposed and the recommendation that John has presented is that the amended recommendation now coming to you is much more workable for my clients from the perspective of including those 2 windbreaks, as well as giving them some more room behind the shed. My client's primary proposal is the 1.79 acre drawing that was Schedule A to the report. And the reason for that is because the 10 meters being proposed, and I understand that that's coming from, you know, drawing a linear line from behind that second windbreak. My client's position is that's about 32 feet behind that shed. So my client's position is twofold. Number one, depending on what's being parked in that shed, you know, if they're parking their camper, that could be anywhere from, you know, 25 to 40 feet in length. There is still the chance that there's going to have to be some driving over the farmer's retained portion of the land. So 10 feet or 10 meters is certainly better than what we had before in the original recommendation, but my client still has concern that we're maybe splitting hairs there in a way that there's going to inevitably some crossing over the lot line. The second basis for their desire and their proposal of the 1.79 acres is that it still does then include the current residential footprint of the property. And that third windbreak to the back, to the north, my clients put forward the position that it doesn't make sense to be splitting up those trees between the farmer and the residential owner, as far as ensuring that those trees are cared for. The second sketch that was presented, so the Schedule B, which is the 2 acres, we had that sketch done because when we were before you last time, one of the comments that was made by a few councillors was wanting to see drip lines included in these severed portions. Again, going to the concept of having all of the trees that are windbreaks as part of the residential property in a way that there's not going to be any sort of conflict or controversy. Who owns what trees, who's taking care of them? So we have the second sketch done, which is 2 acres, which would accomplish that. But my client's primary proposal remains the 1.7 acres that was brought before you at the last meeting. We just didn't have it in a fulsome sketch at that point. So I'm happy to answer any questions that any of the members have for me.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Any questions from members of the committee? Councillor or Deputy Warden Agats.
Not a question, more a comment and observation. I know we're always trying to make these properties as small as we can get them because that's what we're supposed to be doing. But really and truly, does it make sense to cut it off lower? Like, to me, that farmer will never farm that, elevate that property now. It's in lawn, is it not? Between the where the property line is and the field, like it's in lawn, then you got trees. So if the farmer could have went straight across, yeah, but when they got a zigzag in and out, have you ever tried to combine or do some of those things? It's tough when you're zigzagging. So I don't know, I'm almost tempted to say that should stay the original way, but I'm not sure where Jim and Matt are on this, and Walter.
Okay, comment from Sally here.
Thank you, Chair McKenzie. And for the question, Deputy Warden, it's because it is always tough to kind of strike a balance between what makes practical sense and looking at these surplus farm dwelling severances. What we're trying to do is justify everything that's inside the proposed lot line as either the residence itself or accessory to. So it's less about, like, the policy is written to protect farmlands and to protect prime ag lands. And that's why the requirement exists for it to be, for the residential lot to be the minimum size required. So the test comes in determining what is needed for the residential use. And this one has been pretty tricky, a moving target, perhaps. So when we review these, we're looking for what should be included in the residential lot, not what is necessarily farmed or croppable for the farm. The test is that everything within the line of the residential lot is residential or accessory to, and everything else should stay with the farm. That's how the policy is written. And so we don't necessarily look at whether something can be tilled or farmed for it to stay with the farm, because there's lots of areas on farms, laneways, tree groves, things like that, that are just part of the farm lot, and they're not necessarily cropped. So that in and of itself isn't one of the tests that we use, or isn't heavily weighted. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to sort of point that out, that what we're really looking at, what the test is everything inside the severed lot residential or accessory to.
Okay, thank you, Sally, for that explanation. Any other questions? Jim, go ahead.
Just a comment. I actually like it with the 10-meter setback. We've shaved rows of trees out of severances many times. And I'm not sure why we'd want to change on this one. 10-meter setback is almost 32 feet. If you can't back a trailer into that, you shouldn't be pulling it around anyway.
Okay, anybody else? Don't see any hands. Okay, I'll read the recommendation here, and then I'll get Michelle to conduct the vote. So the motion is that Perth County Land Division Committee receives the application for consent to sever surplus farm dwelling number 32/21 by Toll Acres Limited and Adrian Anthony Tolinar report, and that Perth County Land Division Committee approve the application for consent to sever number B32-21, described as Lot 24 and part of Lot 23, Concession 17 of the Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 5570, line 57, as modified by staff, subject to the following conditions. And there are 13 conditions there. And again, I'll ask your permission. Do you want me to read them, or you have already read them and they're there? So I'm getting nods that we'll take them as they were circulated. So those 13 conditions would apply. Do we have a mover and seconder for that particular application? Moved by Warden Aitchison, and do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Thank you. And Michelle, I will let you conduct the vote.
Warden Aitchison,
Yes.
Deputy Warden Agats,
Yes.
Councillor Duncan,
Yes.
and Chair McKenzie.
Yes, so that application is approved. Okay, thank you, everybody taking part. Katie and John, appreciate your input onto that application. Very good. All right, moving on brings us down to item number 6 on the agenda. And the first one is a report on the consent file status. So Michelle, you're going to lead us through that, I believe.
Yes, so we circulated the
consent file status report with the agenda package. And I'll just give a few highlights. So this was as of our July meeting until September 16th. We had 15 new consent applications, several of which have been circulated already or taken to the local councils. We have 8 applications that are currently in process and 7 applications that have been approved through the delegated authority process. 10 applications have received final approval for which a certificate of official was created. And currently there are 3 applications on hold. Both B1622 and B1922 are on hold until the applicant and or the solicitor can prepare the additional required materials. And B3621 is on hold until the surplus farm dwelling housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment is implemented. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions on any of that? Okay. Here's no scarcity of severances anyways.
Yeah.
Keep coming in.
It's true.
Okay, we do have a motion here that Perth County Land Division Committee receives the, I guess I should back up one, the appointment of Deputy Land Division Secretary Treasurer report for information. Now, we didn't, did you?
That was from last month. I'm sorry. I think
Okay, so that was, okay. All right, so the motion should be then that Perth County Land Division Committee receives the consent file status report. So do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Duncan and Deputy Warden Agats, and Michelle, I'll let you conduct the vote on that one. Oh, question from Councillor Duncan.
Just one correction. In file number 27 and 28, it has that it's going to the West Perth Council. That should be North Perth
yes.
Council, I believe, on both of those applications.
That's it.
yes,
Yes,
that's right.
I
Thank you
noticed
for
that when we went through. Yes, thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Okay, so we were just taking the. Yes. Okay, so Warden H is in. That was for
Yes.
the file status. Okay. Deputy Warden Agats,
Yes.
Councillor Duncan,
Yes.
and Chair McKenzie.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
that motion is carried then. Any correspondence at this particular time? No. And I don't believe there are any appeals.
We actually just got an appeal.
Okay.
I just got it on Friday. Sally, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. There's an application in Perth South from CN Railway, and they have a sort of a surplus or property along the rail line, and they wanted to sever most of that property actually, and that would be a lot addition for a residential lot next door. And one of the standard conditions, as you're all aware, is the drainage reapportionment. And they objected to that, but they didn't object during, they appealed the consent based on that. So they don't want to go to Perth South and reapportion the drainage allotment to the severed and the retained. And so they appealed their own consent approval.
Basically, they appealed the $200 fee it was going to cost them for the reapportionment.
Mm-hmm.
Even though
Okay.
they sold the lot and it was going to save them money in the long run, they appealed the $200 fee.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Okay. Any other business at this time? Don't think so. And we don't have a closed session that I'm aware of. So the next meeting date, if we do need one, is October the 31st. It'll be a casual attire, no costumes. And yeah, so there's only one thing left to do is if there's no further questions, and that's a motion that Land Division Committee meeting be adjourned at, I need some help. Oh,
10:10.
10:10. That's what I got. I had to find the right date in the right corner. So moved by Councillor Duncan and seconded by Deputy Warden Agats that we adjourned, and Michelle, I'll let you conduct that vote.
Warden Aitchison,
Yes.
Deputy Warden Agats,
Yes.
Counselor Duncan,
Yes.
and Chair Mackenzie.
Yes, so we are adjourned. Thank you. A good day for a meeting, nice and wet.
Yep.
Yeah, that rain you were